Welcome to How to Modernise Your Legacy Applications. You might be considering why you would modernise your application portfolio. There's a lot to consider, so it'd be really helpful if there was a formula to follow or some lessons learned that we could emulate. One perspective to consider is the impact of continuous optimisation on your modernisation journey. In this session, I'll show you how building in continuous optimisation into the way you operate is a powerful driver to help your modernisation journey. My name is Sean Hooper. I'm a Principal Solutions Architect, and I specialise on working with customers who are transforming through migration, modernisation, and optimisation. Customers are having to evolve faster than ever before. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, organisations need to race just to keep up. We need to drive efficiencies while delighting our customers with compelling new experiences as we tackle the exponentially increasing number of available devices connecting it all together. And as we try to keep up with it all, to evolve fast enough, we find we're held back by rigid technology and very rigid ways of working that are actually designed to support the status quo. However, in 2020, we saw the acceleration of digital transformation, expansion of e-commerce, and the adoption of telemedicine, video conferencing, online teaching, and fintech, all fueled by many factors, including 5G and a global pandemic. Modernisation has delivered benefits for thousands of customers. It's worth it. Despite the challenges, we're seeing thousands of customers gain continued economic payback by embarking on a modernisation journey. These benefits aren't just returned in infrastructure cost savings, but through improvement of agility, security, and staff productivity. And as customers innovate further with new technology, that's now easier to use. They see even greater return on investment than for every dollar previously spent with on-premises based applications. I speak to many different customers, and their perspectives on modernisation can be widely different. Modernisation is typically a multi-year journey, consists of a series of transformations of the technology that comprises your application stack. If we already have a suite of applications in our own data centre, some of the initial steps in moving to the cloud might involve things like moving our workloads and storage to cloud, essentially treating cloud as infrastructure in someone else's data centre. It may include uplifting the operating system versions or start using some of the fully managed database options. And it could include SaaS to access more contemporary applications. You could do all of these things and get to cloud, but surely that's not the end of the journey. Maybe it's just the beginning. Modernising isn't a one-off thing. You may have adopted cloud and migrated to reduce costs, but we know even this requires ongoing work to achieve efficiency and keep meeting our needs as the business and the technology evolve. For modernisation to begin quickly, continue at pace, and keep delivering for us for years to come, there's 4 essential elements or ingredients. First, assessing what you have right now and the benefits that could be achieved if that was in cloud is a really important first step. And this is where almost all organisations begin. But it needs to consider your goals and to be sequenced with a lot of other change that may already be planned or occurring within your organisation today. Next, many customers embark on their migrations when they can see clear cost-saving benefit in migrating to cloud. But when you pay as you go, they quickly begin to realise that this is something that needs to be reassessed on a continuous basis. It may begin when you reconcile your bill each month against budgets and cost allocations. That might then be assessed further as you undertake new initiatives and plan for those, or if you've enabled experimentation and you want to understand where those new use cases might go. All the way through this, you want to be sure that you use cloud as efficiently as possible. As we get into approaches where we continually monitor and assess, we really need to start doing that for everything to ensure that we're using cloud correctly and to the organisation's intent. Cloud enables higher levels of automation to help govern and control your new environment much more easily than in traditional on-premises environments. And the real prize is for organisations to be able to move with the speed and agility of a startup, regardless of their size, to be able to respond to their customers and pressures on their business as they arise, enabled by agility and experimentation. So with these 4 ingredients being key to modernisation, how do we achieve that? In 2020, AWS surveyed 1,200 customers about their modernisation journey. We observed 3 things that they did that had a meaningful impact on their success. The first is making a plan for how you will address your application portfolio. The second is an operating model backed by a service management framework to help you govern and manage your new environment. This incorporates tools, ways of working, frameworks, and defines the approaches and implementation with automation. And the third is using experienced partners, because our analysis showed that where customers use consulting partners, they were more successful and completed their modernisation projects significantly faster. Each of these 3 practical learnings must incorporate our key ingredients: how we migrate, how we optimise, how we control and govern, and how we innovate. So let's take a look at the first lesson. Making a plan for your application portfolio involves prioritising applications according to their importance to the business, considering how tightly integrated they are, and considering some of the many repeatable treatments that can be applied to the underpinning technology stack. We saw earlier that we can adopt cloud by migrating workloads to it, or acquiring applications as SaaS. But we have a lot more options available to us than those, and we can follow some very well-worn paths to actually modernise. Our legacy applications vary in terms of the technology that they're built from, what they run on, and how they can achieve the greatest benefits in changing them. The first step we can take is to rule out the applications that we plan to retire shortly or retain for the foreseeable future. So basically the no change category. Rehosting to cloud instances caters for the bulk workloads and storage that we can simply lift and shift to the cloud with a very low level of change. This transition sees us moving away from self-managed infrastructure in our own data centres to cloud instances which we can right-size and dynamically resize, giving us a lot more flexibility than we have today. Cloud platforms deliver a high degree of standardisation with flexibility known as guardrails. With modern cloud platforms, these guardrails can be enforced with automation and real-time monitoring. It provides teams with choice while standardising what's important to your organisation. That strengthens the way environments are managed. Replatforming allows us to take advantage of the right combination of current software with modern controls. Hosted applications will be replaced with equivalent new software, possibly even from the same vendor. Acquiring a new application as SaaS is theoretically the simplest way to get a sophisticated and extensive suite of software. Now that's a much more modern way of acquiring applications. Whilst this isn't for everyone, having your environment not needing to be serviced by IT operations where they manage and it can be delivered much more quickly, having access to APIs that give you your data in a range of more meaningful ways, this all comes with significant benefits over the way applications are typically delivered on premises. And monolithic applications are still common in many large organisations. They've been relied upon for decades, and they still represent a massive engineering effort that differentiates the business and has probably been tuned to their unique operations and supply chain. Maybe replacing your monolithic application is not the right answer, but you know with requirements for integration and data insights, it would be a lot easier to do a lot of jobs if that application was layered. Then you could expose data and logic in a way that made it work more like a set of modules. Over time, you'd also be able to enhance it module by module, giving you some of that flexibility that you have with modern cloud-native applications. This map is just one way of thinking about moving from what we have today to a better future state that uses cloud by following a number of different paths. For a typical enterprise, we may do all of these things across our entire portfolio. That gives us one conceptual framework for our modernisation journey. But if we consider 100% of our application portfolio, we find that these proportions have shown up again in 2020. These are the percentages of our existing portfolio that we apply each of these treatments to. This clear pattern is important because it gives us an immediate idea of the shape of our overall modernisation journey, based on patterns similar to organisations that have already been successful. The first is that we reduce the size of the estate that we're considering for modernisation. It's a common realisation that many older apps may not even relate well to the future business model. They can be retired. Data shows us that 10 to 20% of the application portfolio can be retired. There are now thousands of SaaS vendors who didn't exist 5 to 7 years ago, and so a number of on-premises apps can be replaced by SaaS offerings. SaaS reduces the application portfolio managed by your IT operations, reducing your operational cost, risk and effort associated with these choices. The second is choosing those applications to move to AWS, deciding what to lift and shift and potentially uplift to improve the experience. Migrating is a really important step to enable you to modernise later. We're seeing a lot of customers who are nearing the end of a multi-year migration who are now able to modernise in ways that just weren't feasible previously because of the lack of agility in their old environment and the complexity of its integration. And finally, select those applications to transform on AWS. The key lesson we learned here is that customers should focus on modernising applications that actually differentiate their business. We see transformational modernisation getting applied to at least 20% of the portfolio over time. Some of this is being performed in-house with IT and some with experienced partners. Customers that have been successful at modernisation have focused their activities in two areas. The first is this adoption of a number of strategies that lead to optimising the cost and compute of storage. So driving down direct costs, beginning with migration and continuing with optimisation. This often includes replacing old licensed application suites with SaaS offerings. They're always up to date, new features are continuously delivered without outages. Or even replacing databases or licensed integration software with pay-as-you-go models deployed from AWS Marketplace or open source. But the second important focus is extracting greater value from using cloud. These things ultimately enable innovation, even though they might initially start achieving cost savings. The more you progress up this path, the more these strategies lead to cost-effective ways to do new things. Deconstructing monoliths leads to greater agility and flexibility, while de-risking management and release cycles. A modern data strategy lets you leverage your most valuable assets and gives you access to machine learning, which is a very powerful and efficient way to gain insights that you were previously unable to achieve. This all leads to being able to more easily innovate with new products or services to delight your customers. In Australia, I commonly see organisations with approximately 300 to 1,000 applications for mid to large enterprises. For most customers, their applications are highly dependent on the server and storage architecture that they've set up in their own data centres. There's some use of containers, but really it's just for portability to make it easier to manage their own infrastructure. SaaS is now relatively common within most enterprises, but it might only represent about 5% of the application portfolio. Some of the examples you might have seen or used could include Salesforce for sales and servicing, Workday for HR, Infor for ERP, or Office 365 for documents. However, many are yet to leverage the ecosystem of pre-integrated software, which makes adoption and management even easier. And the further we progress along this spectrum of options, the more potential there is to rationalise cost and gain agility. For the majority of the application portfolio, the CIO and the business need to decide on the right approaches to leverage the value in their existing applications, rather than on the infrastructure that it runs on. There's tremendous opportunity here for cost rationalisation and to maximise people's skills. As we begin optimising, we can identify and manage the modernisation opportunities. As we modernise, it gets easier to stay optimised. A big lesson that we learned a few years ago, and we saw it again in 2020, is that speed matters. Successful customers create momentum early. Despite the importance of planning, they don't get caught up in analysis paralysis, which leads to inaction. In 2020, the results of using this framework continued to provide benefit by kick-starting customers' migrations and building momentum quickly and maintaining that pace. This framework was developed from our learnings from thousands of successful migration and modernisation programs. It shows what can be achieved at each stage by using the tools and guidance that's available. The assess phase enables rapid, informed decisions. We provide tools and accelerators to help you determine the benefits of migration and modernisation within days to a few weeks. The mobilise phase is where the detailed planning occurs. It's multifaceted planning, covering not just the workloads themselves, but the landing zone that will be used to manage and govern the way those workloads can be operated. It also considers the transition of existing staff that may need new skills, or accelerating the adoption of whole new ways of working by using a managed service. The migrate and modernise phase is where we execute on our plan. Migrations are executed as a series of waves or sprints. The prioritisation and grouping of applications into waves was already planned in the mobilise phase. We test and validate the outcomes expected of each wave as part of doing the work, and we'll see more of that in the next section. And skilled people who've done this before ensure the integrity of the applications is maintained as it's transitioned. So, recapping our plan for modernisation, it contains our 4 key ingredients. Migration and modernisation planning takes into account the prioritisation and sequencing so customers can move on their terms, and an operating model with automation to build in optimisation and control and governance. Which leads us to the second major learning from successful modernisation initiatives, is setting up an operating model supported by a service management framework. As customers move to the cloud, the way they used to operate traditional infrastructure doesn't make sense anymore. And cloud delivers a wide range of new contemporary tools to help you manage applications, security, and cost with greater agility. The operating model is how you control the outcomes you want to achieve from your application portfolio. In the past, we designed our operating models to ensure that 1, our data is not lost even when bad things happen, and 2, applications are available to do their job. Most organisations minimise changes to avoid disruption that could put those objectives at risk. Now we know the survival of our organisations requires constant change. We now need to support data protection and service availability with frequent change as part of our new normal. To support this efficiently, an operating model that supports a continuous motion allows us to handle this new rate of change. Automation greatly simplifies this and has the added benefit of ensuring that we continue to operate safely as we do. A continuous operating model should naturally cater for optimisation to be built into this cycle. So now, instead of being governed by serial gated processes like authority to operate or a go live check or occasional review processes, you're able to build in the monitoring, validation and responsive controls to optimise for cost and agility and security, all enabled in parallel. This naturally aligns you to the cost and agility goals of your business, and it changes IT from being an overhead to continuously demonstrating value. There's a lot of tools to choose from. AWS is continually bringing new services and features to market as we see need from our customers. Our partners are also extending this ecosystem, and together we're providing customers with more choice to build their service management framework using these services in support of your new operating model. For example, more than 20 of these partners are already integrated with Control Tower, so provisioning of a landing zone using Control Tower also supports the management and governance capabilities of the partner products you choose. There's over 140 software partners just in the management and governance space, and over 70% of them are in AWS Marketplace, which also provides controls to help you further optimise software management for your organisation. Many of the tools that were traditionally used as part of our service management framework were different to the tools we use to assess our portfolio and plan migrations and modernisation. However, now these are coming together in a really powerful way. Instead of assessment and planning being a segmented approach that takes months more than it should, we're able to use the tools of our future state to advise us on things that can be optimised, whether that's something as simple as right-sizing an instance through to migration or modernisation projects. This also means tracking changes through each wave of a project is much easier, and our observability encompasses the whole continually modernising ecosystem. We also learn from our customers that a deep understanding of the workloads selected was very important to success. This is often difficult and requires a lot of data and analysis. Now with drill down and drill up dashboards that combine these views, some together with project and value metrics, we can gain that very deep understanding that will enable us to both optimise and safely manage modernisation. There is no one right service management framework to help you govern your operating model. You can build your own from the many different vendors we've seen on the previous slides. This is just an example of the set of tools and vendors from one customer that we advised on through AWS ProServe. The customer developed this service management framework for their particular needs, covering their development teams and their modernisations objectives. What makes a lot of SaaS and contemporary offerings so compelling goes beyond an online catalogue to find a tool with a functional fit and the right price. AWS Marketplace can be used as part of your operating model to enable compliance, security, procurement with pre-integrated license management, while helping you to manage choice in a multiplayer scenario like a service management framework. This can accelerate the creation of your service management framework so you're running your new operating model faster. AWS is actually part of modernising your operating model and ensuring further efficiency of your software management. So, cloud adoption requires an operating model and service management framework to ensure continuous optimisation, as well as to control and govern it. And we saw there's plenty of choice to accelerate that. The third lesson that our customers relayed to us is get help from someone that's done this before. Most found that using a trusted, expert external party provided significant acceleration to their modernisation goals. We know from a number of surveys that the skills gap is the single biggest obstacle to customers innovating at pace. The numbers from our 2020 study of 1,200 modernisation customers saw some patterns in the use of consulting partners. First, customers who used a consulting partner completed their migrations and modernisation projects 25% faster. This was linked directly to experience. Second, customers were 16% more successful in achieving their goals through the use of a consulting partner. We also observed that it takes care of the problem of key staff being distracted from high priority initiatives. Offloading non-core work to external parties is a significant accelerator. We continue to get asked by our customers to help them with choosing a partner with the right skills. We do this by certifying our partners with relevant competency programs. We have already certified over 130 migration competency partners that have demonstrated their ability to successfully navigate the factors we've discussed today and to set you up for continuous optimisation and modernisation. So when you start your portfolio analysis, bring in an expert who's done this before. AWS Enterprise Support and AWS Managed Services are just two additional ways to optimise your use of resources and gain the greatest benefit. Both of these accelerate your planning and execution while freeing up your people to respond to the priorities of the business. And of course, AWS can directly enable your existing staff via AWS training and certification. They can assess where your team's skills are currently at and what they need to reskill for the cloud. Delivery includes online classes, in-person classes, certification mechanisms, white papers, and guidelines to help you learn to successfully migrate and modernise your existing applications and workloads to the AWS cloud. So by using experts, we optimise the use of experience, existing skills, and hone our focus around the things that differentiate us. We avoid blockers and stalls that we may have encountered if we tried to do it ourselves. We're optimised and freeing up the resources to innovate because we are focused on the things that deliver the greatest value and differentiate our business. So to close, optimising is not just once, but forever. It's something that is integrated into our modernisation journey. In turn, it will inform and enable you to keep modernising. The way we achieve that is in three things that we've seen others succeed with. The first is make a plan, one that incorporates the right migration and modernisation criteria and focuses that plan around your business differentiation. The second is to build a service management framework to operate your environment with continuous optimisation built in. The third is leveraging experience. It comes in many forms with AWS Enterprise Support, AWS Managed Services, and partner consulting. If you do these things, continuous optimisation will be built in to your new ways of working. And now we know how that will actually power your ability to continuously modernise. Thank you for spending the time going through these lessons learned with me today, and please complete the session survey, bearing in mind just how important these learnings could be to your future way of working and the impact that you can have.